are saying, you can't really reconcile the two.
Ghana's
and the
gold.
Reasons
Radio Gold.
for being where we are now,
Okay.
a lot of things doesn't really add up. And the more to be honest with you, probably if you don't understand a lot of these things, you will be fine. Because the more you understand them, the more frightening they get.
Okay.
Really frightening. And I have said time and time again that in the end, this government will have to end up at the IMF in the end. They can kick their legs and scream going there, but eventually, looking at the numbers, the way I see them, looking at the trend, the way things are going, looking at the general global situation,
Okay.
it is really going to be difficult, whether they are homegrown policies or whatever you think of, to be able to hold the economy the way it should be held.
Okay.
It's not going to survive for long. And yes, we really have to be honest about the way we are looking at things. Look, if we're able to even ride the last term of President Nana Akufo-Addo, those 2 years or so down the road, and even when we get a new government in, it is not going to be a walk in the park. Because the situation would have been so bad if they don't do anything now, that whoever comes in, and of course, if Ghana votes the NDC, I believe, in, and we don't have answers in the first year for the kind of situation this government will leave us in, we ourselves will probably be out of favor in no time, because the situation is quite a dangerous one. It's really very dangerous situation.
I'm wondering which numbers jump at you when you look at
the numbers. A lot of numbers jump at me. I mean, first of all, you look at the astronomical debt that this government has put on us. And you look at normally you look at the correspondent, you look at the other side. We have this much debt in, and then you look at how much that money has been used for. If it's gone into proper investment and investment in the economy in the way that it should, then you can be comfortable that some returns, not necessarily in terms of money alone, but some returns would have come out to mitigate, the what is called high debt, at high cost of servicing the debt, so that you will have avenues. The economy will grow in such a way that you will have avenues to be able to service the debt comfortably. But when that is not happening, but yet an astronomical amount of money, has been borrowed by this government, then it becomes quite worrying. And some of them, the worrying bit is the way we have actually mortgaged the assets of the country. So basically, we are depriving even the future generation who will come and manage this economy, the very resources that previous governments have gotten out of the system in terms of the asset. Whatever we have that we sell to get, money, gold, cocoa, and bauxite, what have you.
Because I hear even funds have been affected.
Yes. So you look at it, in the past, we have had a situation where, you may have some high debt thing and all that, but you wouldn't have a situation where assets of the nation, both cash assets and liquid assets and solid assets, have all been mortgaged or have been collateralized to receive money today, which eventually will deprive the future generation the same resources that have been enjoyed by previous government in terms of servicing whatever debt or whatever damage they come and meet. the future generation will be deprived of that. And that is where the worry is. And you look at the issues right now and how they are being addressed. You look at the high inflation that we have at the country, and you look at the causes of it. Look, everybody was affected by the COVID. Every country was hit by COVID, both health crisis and economic crisis. But we have come out very badly out of the economic. Thank God the health crisis was not that bad. But the economic crisis, we have come out very badly when you compare ourselves to our peers and other countries who also suffer the same fate. And you ask yourself, how can that be? And the simple answer is, if you build your house with straws, when the storm comes, you will be exposed. Because if you build your house on clay, and then the storm comes and blows your house, down or apart, when you get out of it first, the first question will be, you blame the first question, you blame the storm. That this is a very heavy storm, and as a result of that, my building is down. But when you actually get your head out of, the rubbles or whatever it is, and you look at your neighbors and their houses are standing, then you begin to question the materials upon which your house was built on. And that is the situation with Ghana now. It's quite frightening that when we get our head out of all this, we will realize that it is as a result of bad management of the economy, not entirely on COVID, not entirely on Ukraine-Russian war. By saying this, I am also admitting that there are, as economists will call it, exogenous factors. There are factors that were coming from outside, external factors, as is known by ordinary people, external factors. And these external factors obviously have played a role in bringing us where we are. But more importantly, Senna, these external factors have exposed the fragility or the weakness of Ghana's economy. If you look at the inflation situation, the inflation is, the bulk of it is actually food inflation. Now, then you ask yourself a question. We are in a country where the government has a policy or a flagship program of planting for food and job. So our situation compared to even our neighbors who don't have such a program should therefore be better than them, in the sense that we are actually planting for food and job. So our food security situation, you would have thought, would be okay. But when you look at all the indicators and you realize that if you look in the budget that was presented to us, and I want to talk to data here, is that you realize that the contribution of GDP coming from agriculture, or even if you drill it down further to crops, because agriculture is broad, to crops, which is directly related to planting for food and jobs, that is going down. So we are the only country where the more food we plant, the less we harvest. That's the interpretation.
The more food we plant,
the less we harvest. Because if we are harvesting more, then you will expect to have a food security, and you will expect the contribution of crops to GDP to actually go up. It is not because other sectors are doing better, but it is because the agriculture sector or the crop sector is doing badly. Then you come to the price until the Ukraine war. Ukraine war started somewhere towards the end of February. But the inflation was going up before that. And all along, the government statistician was telling us that the bulk of the inflation we experienced even before the February 24th or whatever, when the Ukraine war came in, was as a result of food insecurity. There was no transport component or fuel component of that food crisis. So later on, the Ukraine war comes in, then you have oil prices feeding into transportation and obviously affecting logistics of getting the food from the farm gate to the market. So there's that inflation. But the bulk of it is food inflation, which means that we have not done well with that program.
Okay.
And if you look at the amount of money which comes from the borrowed money, the excessive borrowed money we are talking about was put into such a program, yet the government refuses to review it. Then you come to the fuel, which it's mind-boggling that I don't know. Sometimes I ask myself that, look, I don't think I'm smarter than most people in this country, but I find it difficult to understand that the government doesn't see the serious implication of fuel prices in the Ghanaian economy as the basis of pretty much everything that is going wrong in this country. And you look at it and there's a clear solution. And I don't know where they are looking. Because when somebody tells you that you look at the whole price build-up, and the solution is actually not a rocket science. Because what they pull a wool over our eyes by telling us that, oh, Ghana is a net, what is it called? Is a net exporter of crude. Therefore, we take in more, we consume more oil product than we actually export.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. If you really understand the whole thing, it really doesn't matter whether you are net importer or net exporter, because you don't process your own crude to consume. Okay. If we process our own crude to consume, then you say after consuming what we have, we also bring some from outside to add to the consumption, because what we need home is more than we produce. But that is not how the balance sheet of the oil balance sheet works. Because in the past, when we were in government, we had subsidies. We were subsidizing petroleum product in this country, obviously to prevent this kind of situation that we're in. So the BDCs, the OMCs were being subsidized. The price at which the oil was bought and brought into the country is not what was sold to the consumer, because the government will cushion, and that is the subsidy. Mm-hmm. So supposing the price that they should have transferred to the consumer is 10, the government takes 50%, so the oil will sell at 5 cedis per liter instead of 10. Okay. So that was a cost to government. It was a cost. Yeah. So when oil prices go up and maybe the subsidy needed to be increased, that is a cost to government. When you remove subsidies, which we have done, the oil into the country is at no cost to the government of Ghana.
Okay.
Because the BDCs who are bringing oil, the currency, the hard currency that you give them, the dollars, even if they get it from the central bank, is sold to them. They don't give them, like the arrangement they have with Bank of Ghana now, where dollars are being ring-fenced for them to be able to go and bring their product. It's not free money. So it's not at a cost to government. They are being given to the BDCs to go and bring in the oil, which they will pay for. So government at the front end, which is the pump price side, don't have any cost, or if they have, it's negligible. So government cannot say that we are net this and all that, so we can't do anything about it. Now then come to the price itself. Okay, if you look at the price build-up, and if you have a little arithmetic or mathematic intuition, you will realize that let's say a formula that is put there to calculate the price depends on global crude price, which is now around 110 and all that. So everything else, even the tax, as mathematicians will tell you, is a coefficient of these parameters. So the taxes are just coefficient.
Okay.
So if you have a parameter related to oil and it's 10, and you are charging 0.2 of that 10, that 0.2, which is the tax, is just a coefficient. So depending on the tax revenue actually gets bigger when the crude oil price actually when it goes up.
Okay.
So that tells you that government is actually profiting from crude oil going up because government has made a budget. In the budget, they have estimated a revenue that they intend to get. The taxes on petroleum is part of the tax revenue the government is expecting. They have forecasted what the crude oil is going to be. So in the budget, they estimate what the crude prices is likely to be. And they go for like $65. So which means that the revenue they expect to get based on $65. So you have, if they want a particular tax to be, say, 0.5% of 65. Let's make a simple argument.
Okay.
So the tax is the coefficient. The oil price is the parameter. So if the oil price is at 65 or thereabout, it means government is getting the tax revenue that it has projected. When the oil price increases and goes to 100, it means the coefficient is now being multiplied to a bigger parameter. So the tax revenue is now more than what the government anticipated.
Okay.
So government is making more money with oil prices going up because the tax is not static. It's a component of a parameter that is going up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So government is actually, so if government can apply some kind of a scaling and say that, okay, if the oil price has now gone to 100, so let's say between 65 to 100, you have 35 there.
Yeah.
Okay, so 0.2, which is the tax, let's say the whole tax, 0.2 multiplied by that 35 is money that government has not anticipated.
Okay.
So that is a new money coming in because they are already picking their 0.2 of 65. That money can then be used in a scaling manner. So, okay, let's say now if this thing gets here, then instead of 0.2, we can bring it to 0.15 or something. So when you do that, then you are reducing the tax component of the price because you are gaining from volumes or from higher prices. So government cannot make any argument that they are losing money there. It's the BDCs who are losing money.
And they're all marketing companies.
All marketing company. Now, so that's the front end. When you come to the back end, government is also making money at the back end. Because in the same budget, because don't forget, we are an oil producing nation.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether we are net or we are whatever. That's what I'm saying, that the balance sheets are separate. When you come to that balance sheet, we produce oil and send it out, which we get paid for. We have anticipated in the budget again that we are going to get $65 for our production of oil.
Okay.
Now all of a sudden we are getting 100. So we are getting another 35 there, which was also being anticipated by this government. So why wouldn't government use either the tax end by doing the scaling up and down to cushion the petrol price at the pump, or use the windfall which is coming at the end, which government did not anticipate, and say that, okay, you know what, we projected crude price to be 65.
Okay.
If crude price is 65, then a liter of petrol at the pump would have been, let's say, 7 cedis. Okay. So how do we maintain 7 cedis even if crude prices are going up? That is to use a percentage of the windfall to cushion. So we bring back the subsidies which we took on the NDC, which is this will be a temporary subsidy. So for, if it's another 6 months or 1 year that the oil prices continue to go up, this cushion will be there.
Okay.
It will have a sunset clause that the moment the oil prices stabilize at where we expect it to be, those will be removed. Then the prices will take their market. This can be done today. And oil prices will stop going up. Because the problem they are creating for themselves, who they don't realize, is that once the oil price continue to go up, it brings its own inflation. And it brings inflation also to the food side. So you have two inflations coming in. Then you have another inflation that comes from the currency as a result of that. So if you don't do these things, then you are going to leave the work in the hands of Bank of Ghana, who will do what they are not supposed to be doing. Bank of Ghana is there to target inflation on the monetary policy side. But what I've explained to you, the inflation we are facing is not a demand-driven inflation. It's not an inflation coming from as a success, because success of your own economy can create inflation. When we create jobs, like as companies are bouncing back from the pandemic and all that, people are hiring again and all that, wages are going up, then you will expect some overheating of the economy. That inflation is the inflation that you use monetary policy, which is the monetary policy rate, to try and contain. But the inflation we are experiencing is not a demand-driven, it's a supply and cost side. So if you use the same Bank of Ghana method of increasing interest rate to try and address the problem, it will not address the problem, but rather create a problem for you. It's like you have, and sorry for people who are probably suffering from cancer and all that, probably a bad example to use. But if you have a cancer and then you go to the hospital and the doctor says, look, this chemo will be good for you. Okay, so the chemo is supposed to give you some result, put the cancer into, remission or something. But if the cancer is not going to remission, if the inflation is not going down while you are increasing interest rate, but the chemo is now giving you a stomach ulcer that is becoming severe, in the long run, it's not the cancer that will kill you, it's the ulcer that will kill you. So in the long run, what will kill the economy is not the inflation itself, because the prescription that the Bank of Ghana is using, which is an aggressive prescription, because the quantum with which they are increasing interest rate is quite astronomical and unacceptable. It got to be done gradually, because if you do it like that, what you are creating is you are increasing the cost of borrowing by the private sector, because it feeds into lending rate, and lending rate will go up, and people who are borrowing money to do their businesses will also have, and even government owned borrowing, treasury, domestic treasury bills will go up. So government will be paying more to borrow to do whatever the government wants to do. In the long run, that will begin to affect growth, and the economy will begin to slow down. The growth that you need to get the economy out of this pandemic is not going to happen, and in the end, we might end up in a recession. This is where we are headed. So, and the managers of the economy, if they can actually sit down and try and look at the whole picture as I have painted to you, they will act quick and act, with the speed of light.
So what we are seeing is a problem that policy is supposed to be solving. Let's say fiscal policy.
Yeah.
The finance minister is supposed to be dealing with.
Yeah.
That the Bank of Ghana is trying to address.
Yes, because the inflation is skyrocketing so fast that the Bank of Ghana thinks that, the usual method.
Yeah.
When inflation is going up, you increase interest rate.
Yeah.
Because increasing interest rate is basically taking liquidity out of the system.
Okay.
You are presuming that the economy is overheating, which is what inflation does. So if the economy is overheating, then of course you have to take the heat out of the economy. But the economy is not heating as a result of demand. It's heating as a result of supply challenges and as a result of cost. So the panacea or the prescription is not the right one. Though in a medical book, it might tell you that cancer is chemotherapy, but you've got to look at the patient and look at the type of cancer you are dealing with. So the problem is that because the fiscal side, the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance, is not doing what he's supposed to do on the fiscal side to control this, like the oil situation I've painted to you, which is a government policy, and it can be implemented today and reduce oil prices or fuel at the pump quite drastically. yes, it's going to affect the windfall, but the windfall, you have not anticipated for that windfall. Okay. It's like you won the lottery. It's not the money you have budgeted for. It's not part of your salary. And the government salary is its revenue. So if you have won lottery, you can do certain things with it. So you can use it to reduce your own hardship.
Okay.
The hardship that is being created. And the other implication is in the end. And then you come to the currency itself.
Okay. Because I was coming to that. Yeah. I'm wondering how, because that's currency.
Yeah.
And
now, again, part of the currency issue is to do with the pandemic, Ukraine, and all that.
Okay.
Part of it is also as a result of us. What we do, I mean, structurally in the country, and this is not peculiar to this government alone, the structure economy of Ghana itself is in such a way that we are always going to be in this kind of situation because we are a country that imports too much and export very little.
Okay.
And the little we export, we add very little value to it. So we don't get a good value along the value chain from our export. So the structure of the economy itself has to change. But changing the structure of the economy is not a short-term measure. You need a medium to long-term. But the problem is here confronting you now. So what do? So you need a short-term remedy. Now, again, ideally, the central bank's job on the financial stability side is to use its reserves to cushion the currency. What does depreciation really mean of your cedi? It means that, again, in simple arithmetic terms, it means that you have less cedis in your system. You have more dollars in your system. Let's look at it this way. You use the Bank of Ghana has dollars, okay, in their reserves. That's the hard currency we keep. There is a demand for the dollar, but your economy has less dollars. That's what I want to say. You have less dollars and you have more cedis in your economy.
Okay.
So there are too many dollars. The dollars in your system is very small, and there are a lot of people chasing it because BDCs need dollars, traders need dollars. People are expatriating dollars from your economy, creating a shortage. The telcos, the people who are investing, the people who invest in our bonds here, who have lost confidence in our economy, are repatriating their money
in dollars.
Okay. So they mop up the dollars in the system and take it out. So you have all these problems going on. So the simple address to address this issue by Bank of Ghana is to take your reserves and try and buy cedis from the market. So by so doing, you are putting more dollars in the system and taking cedis out. So you create a shortage of cedis and increase the dollar, and that will automatically adjust your price in terms of appreciating your cedi. Again, this is a textbook, textbook remedy if everything is normal. But what the situation that is happening is not as normal as it, so you cannot use that policy unless you have an infinite amount of dollars, which you don't have in your reserves. Ghana does not print dollars. It's not a dollar country. So your reserve is only up to 7 billion or whatever, that is about 3 or 4 months import cover. When you are using that money to do this exercise, I'm telling you, to try and, put more dollars in the system, you need to have something that is replenishing that reserve. If you can't do Eurobonds again, because you've been downgraded by the rating agencies, so much so that international investors will not touch you. So that money is not coming. If your cocoa syndication, which comes in annually to about 1.5 to 2 billion US dollars, is not coming as they used to, it means the means for replenishing your dollars is gradually closing. Therefore, if you use the dollars you have to handle your currency situation, you are going to run out of reserves. Therefore, you will not have any cover for your import. And also, the external portion of your loan, the debt, which is in dollars, which you service in dollars, you will not have money to do that. So you will default. So again, that's where the IMF comes in. And that's where you might think IMF is a bad thing. Look, the IMF was set up primarily for addressing exchange rate imbalances in countries who are having exchange rate crisis. That is the job of the IMF. IMF was not created to give, initially, was not created to give loans to support your budget and all that. It was purely for exchange rate. It's the World Bank that does the other side. But over the years, the IMF function has become. But their primary goal is to stabilize your exchange rate. Therefore, if you have exchange rate crisis, where do you go?
You go to the IMF.
You say we've been to the IMF 17 times or 16 times.
In fact, your government left an IMF program that they inherited.
Yes, we have been. And again, it's not peculiar to this government. Yeah. Over the years, we have been going in and out of IMF. But when we come out of it, we come and do the same things that got us into IMF. So it will become a revolving door for you. You will be going in and out until you begin to change the way you behave as an economy. So if you come to IMF, what do you go to IMF for? You went to IMF for some kind of a discipline, physical discipline. Cut your coat according to your size. Use your resources wisely. Cut corruption. Don't get into programs that is going to be pouring water in the drain. If you do that, you'll be fine. When we are IMF, that is the type of restrictions that we complain about. The doing the right things on the IMF is what I'll complain. The reason we don't want to go. We don't want to be disciplined. So we don't want to go to IMF and IMF say, don't do this, don't do this, don't. The problem with our timing of going to IMF, we always do it too late. Therefore, when you do it too late, you don't have a say in the matter. They just prescribe the things for you and you have to follow. But if you go there at the time where you have a say, which we attempted to do when we were in government by the Senchi and all those things that we took our own homegrown policy to the IMF, we got something out of it. But you are still going to go under conditionalities. And those conditionalities may be as painful or as painful as they may be. They could also help your economy. But when you come out of it and you continue to do the same thing, you go there again. So IMF is not the problem. The problem is us. After an IMF program, how do we run our economy? So at this stage, the reason why if you cannot replenish your reserves by the usual Eurobond, cocoa syndication, and the little export that you export, which you don't add value to, that is not coming the way it used to, then you will need somebody to give you money, hard currency, not cedis. You can't fill up your reserves with e-levy because e-levy is in cedis.
I was coming to that because they said that was the solution to the problem.
That's what they don't understand what their problem is. For them to know what the solution is. And
they do not.
I have said it several times. If you have listened to me, I said the e-levy is not the solution. Because to be able to convert your e-levy revenue, even if you want to put in your reserves, you will have to convert that cedis you get into what? Into dollars, which will self create a currency crisis for you. So the money that should come into your reserve has to be a hard currency, has to be dollars. And how do you get the dollars? If you go to the IMF, I often say that when we go to IMF, the money that we negotiate with IMF is usually small. It's not because IMF can't give you a lot of money. If you check in other countries where they've been to IMF, they could go for about 5, 6, 7 billion US dollars. When we go for 1 billion US dollars and all those things, look, but it's down to negotiation. Being at IMF is about negotiation. You tell them why you need that money and the programs you are going to embark on together. Because why would you go to Eurobond market and borrow 3 billion a year, which they have done in the last few years? You take the $3 billion this year, $3 billion next year, and you are paying a commercial rate for it. When you take that money from IMF, you are paying a concessionary rate, which is about 10 times lower than what you pay when you take your Eurobond. So when you go and do Eurobond and come and do a KK party and excite yourself that you have done great, you haven't actually done anything. You are burdening the country with debt, and you are depriving the future generation for even having the resources to pay for this debt. So now this is the danger that we are in. And if our leaders don't wake up to see what is going on and try and understand the economy. I mean, I don't want to believe they don't understand it. But everything they are doing indicates to me that these guys don't have a clue. Because if they have a clue, my brother, the oil situation, I mean, when you get up in the morning, you don't know how much, what is it called, transport is going to be to go to work. You go there today, it's 5 cities, tomorrow it's 7 cities. I mean, how can you live in a country like that? What is government for? If it's going to be a free fall for everyone, people get up and determine that, and the transport owners are right. Because if the fuel price is not something they can contain, they will have to pass the price on to, yes, there are some extortion going on and all that, even to do with food and all that. But the reality of the situation, Sana, is that people are suffering. The hardship that is going on is real. And something can be done. And I hear people say, oh, we can't take the, what is it called? We can't take taxes off because the taxes are... You can take taxes off because the taxes you are getting is more than what you anticipated, unless you don't understand it.
Okay.
You cannot say that we are a net exporter or a net importer of oil. Therefore, the windfall we are getting, we bring in more oil than... No! It means you don't understand the balance sheet of the whole oil stuff.
Okay.
And that's the problem we have.
I wish we could go on and on and on the economy. In fact, I was enjoying listening to you because your interpretation is one that I'm yet to hear. I've heard various people speak about the economy in different ways. Yeah. Your interpretation is quite different. I've heard different opinions.
And my interpretation is for immediate solution.
Okay.
Not, Ghana has a long-term problem, too many long-term problems. But you have to live today to be able to address your problems tomorrow. If you don't live today, there will be no tomorrow.
Oh, unfortunately, I have 24 minutes more to go on this issue, right, on the interview. So let's move to what happened in Parliament yesterday, since that is an immediate issue that we need to address.
Absolutely.
Because I've been speaking to a few people, one person in finance, the other person in health, and the other in governance who you listen to. Yeah. And they are all of the opinion that what the finance minister did yesterday is not adequate. You agree?
Yes, I do agree. And it is actually frightening again. I have not actually looked at the COVID finances like this. We pick bits and pieces. You hear tomorrow World Bank actually gave Ghana 430 million, not 100 million. You know what we did in the stabilization fund to basically reduce the cap so 200 million or whatever can be taken out of it. You hear of Africa Development Bank giving us money. You hear of Ghana Bank, Bank of Ghana itself giving us some 10 billion. You hear bits and pieces here. And when you put it together, it's quite a lot of money. And the question you ask yourself, that hasn't COVID, as bad as it was, as a health crisis, and to an extent an economic crisis, been a blessing in disguise for Ghana? COVID has actually been a blessing in disguise. When you look at the astronomical amount of money that has come into the hands of this government, and you look at here in this pamphlet I'm holding, and you look at the way the money has been disbursed, it's as if somebody is selling cocoa, and then you bring your cup and you put yours in, and these are millions going into MDAs, MMDAs, ministries, department, agencies, metropolitan. We have had radio, recordings of people. It tells you the mentality in this government about what the whole COVID money was to them. It's like, me COVID money about me try me. So when it's given to them, in the UK and other places where you get up in the morning, you see a milkman brings a milk and put it at your... They don't even wake you up. They leave the door at your doorstep because, there nobody will pick the milk. So when you get up in the morning, you come to drink your cup of tea, you open your door and you pick up the milk. That's how this COVID money was dispersed. It's like they put it at your doorstep. So when you wake up, you can just pick yours. We had
a scary picture you are painting. That you feel that the money was... You said it was like cocoa being dished out.
Yeah. When you look at here, I mean, I'm talking, are these monies 230 million, 35 million, 200 million? Like, the thing is littered. 18.19 billion is the money they claim they got. Apart from the discrepancies of what the president said the amount was, what the
vice president also
also said. Okay, now let's say this is the Bible we should read from what. So they program about 19 billion. They realized about 18.1 billion, and that is what they have disbursed for all the things they are talking about, including the feeding, which was done, abysmally, and all those things. You look at it and say, where does this money go? Because the shortages that you claim COVID brought to your revenue, you use COVID money to actually plug that hole. So what is your problem? Why are you complaining? You got the money. Whether it's okay, it's a borrowed money, you pay back, but you got it. Okay, you said businesses were suffering, so you helped to cushion businesses. You selected some businesses which you claim you have given a lot, and they're all here. You claim you are giving a lot of money to businesses, and the question is, which businesses receive this money? Why are businesses still shut? Why are people who were laid off not getting back to work? When you go to other jurisdictions, companies that laid off people and closed down, mainly the hospitality industry, they are coming back and they are recruiting people. And now it's even costing them more to recruit because of the demand of people needed to work. The wages, you have to pay high wages or the market wage to be able to attract people. That is what causes, if I can put the word, a genuine inflation. That is what we call a demand-driven inflation.
Okay.
And that is what, if it's going up, you can use your interest rate thing to address it. But you don't address this situation we have with about 250 basis points. That's 2.5. When you hear about inflation, interest rate being increased elsewhere, it's about 50 basis points, 75. Because you should look at the other side. What that drug is creating on the other side is giving somebody an ulcer. And that is what the Bank of Ghana needs to look at. That please stop this, what is it called? Aggressive monetary policy rate. And take your time and do it in a way that will go along. Otherwise, you are creating another problem which will compound the fiscal problem that we have. So you look at this, and the money that was collected, one of the surprising things I think my colleagues raised was to do with the money that was collected supposedly from private sector. Yeah. And some of the contributors of this private sector money were Ghanaian institutions, both public and private institutions. This money was supposed to be given to a trust. Now the question, and that is what the Speaker has referred for further investigation, because government expenditure is done in a number of areas, or a few areas governed by rules, and those areas where your expenditure comes from has to be areas, or have to be areas that Parliament has approved. And what are the Parliament approved areas? Consolidated fund, contingency fund. That is why stabilization money was taken from the stabilization fund into the contingency for spending. We have earmark funds, the GET fund, the common fund, and all that. Their money goes there as well. These are the approved areas. So if public and private institutions have contributed money to the state through this trustee, where should that money be sitting? Should it be sitting with the trustees and disbursed there at their pleasure? Or should that money be sent to the consolidated fund or contingency fund, whichever, for it to be spent? So this is silent on the money itself. Okay. And it is also silent on its disbursement. Okay.
On that private money
yes.
that we collected from private
yes.
or public institutions.
Because it ceases to be private money.
Okay.
Once it comes to a trustee set up by government,
okay,
it is no longer private money. It becomes a state money. Now, if that money is going to be expended in a way as a government expenditure, then it can only be spent out of a parliament approved vault.
Okay, so you were supposed to know, those of you in parliament were supposed to know how much that money had accumulated.
And the speaker has now directed that a further investigation should be conducted, because the minister was silent on that. So we don't know who actually was in charge, was the custodian of that money.
Okay.
Whether it was given to government or whether it stayed with the trustees, and how has it been spent, since it's a state money. That's one side of it.
Okay.
Then there are other discrepancies, like a 600 million, which was supposed to have been released for Agenda 111.
Yes.
You know, we went through COVID without a single hospital built by anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks to President Mahama and his NDC government, hospitals were put in place to deal with the pandemic. Sometimes I ask myself, had President Mahama not built this hospital and went on Agenda 111 or Agenda whatever until the end of his term, how would we have dealt with COVID? That is the health crisis that COVID brought. Because this government went through COVID without a single hospital, all relying on hospitals that had just been completed by President Mahama before he left office, and were not even, you know, they were now installing the equipment, were commissioned to used. Yeah, because I had a relative who went to, is it Guy East or whatever?
Yeah, the Guy East.
Yeah, for COVID. And the hospital was not ready. They were the patients were in there when they were still painting the building. This government added nothing in terms of infrastructure. Then on their Agenda 111, they had actually disbursed 600 million in their own report that they have here. And the 600 million was disbursed in 2020.
Okay.
To go to Agenda 111. Yet, without having, you know, they haven't cut any sword or done anything. But then what happened? The Agenda 111 itself was started in August or something, you know, according to the ranking on health. So 600 million was given a whole year before the project itself started. And then when the project started, or the way the project has started, that's how I should put it, another 700 million or something has also been released. So the question is that, what was the 600 million used for? Would they say that the 600 million were used for preparatory work? Because when you come to start a project, do preparatory work. 600 million is a hell sum of money to say you did a preparatory work for it. Then, all of a sudden, government, after spending 20 billion of taxpayers' money to collapse banks unnecessarily, 9 banks were shut unnecessarily. They did certain things and all that, and spent this much money. And so now you ask yourself, what did they really need to save these banks? The banks were 9. Their capitalization had gone to 400 million by the Bank of Ghana, that every bank should have 400 million. If 9 banks, let's say they didn't have anything, and the banks had something, let's say they were 0 on their balance sheet, and the government decided that I'm going to lend you 400 million so that you meet the capitalization of the central bank and you pay me later. That would have cost the government 3.6 billion.
Okay.
So maybe tops about 4-5 billion would have saved all these 9 banks, and they will be operational today and help in the liquidity challenges that we have in this country. But what did the government do? Collapse them in some funny fashion and come to tell us that we have spent 20 billion instead of 5 billion. If that is not a financial loss to the state, I don't know what is. And this thing, we will look into it. To collapse these banks. And then you come and levy us financial services what is it called, tax. We are paying for that bailout. We are paying for COVID, which is fine. Yeah. But we want to pay for things where our money has been used judiciously by the government who controls the purse. And they said they're a protector of government purse. This government is an abuser. This tells you, this government is an abuser of public purse. And when you go through here, they spend, after collapsing these banks, killing entrepreneurship when it comes to banking. Which local entrepreneur today will get up and say, I want to set up a bank? When the first bank has been collapsed, when Miracle's bank they've collapsed it, when Captain's bank, what's his name, UT, yeah, they've collapsed Amwabe's bank. Which Ghanaian in his right sense will say, I want to set up a bank? You have killed entrepreneurship. Now you say you are using a button pop project and stuff to create entrepreneurship, and you go ahead and set up a new bank. Senseless bank. You have banks. Look, NIB was on its knee. NIB should have been the banks that should have collapsed. But the government saw it wise to build NIB out. Why didn't the government do the same? NIB was in worse situation than UT banks and others. But today NIB is working and is good. If you really want a bank to turn it into a development bank, the NIB was set up for that purpose. It is called the National Investment Bank. Sometimes when we use this NIBs and all that, we forget the meaning. This bank was set up to invest in the economy. That's the same as a development bank. Then what do? You give it a universal license that the bank can do everything else. When you tell a bank they can do everything else, they will abandon hard investment and go and do other things that will give them quick money. Why should I give you money to set up a company when I can give money to somebody to clear their goods at the port immediately and sell them? Somebody had brought in ties in the country. Somebody is ready to buy it at the harbor. But I need to clear it. So I know when I clear it, I'm going to get my money. The banks are happy to give you money to do that. But if you say you are going to set up a company that will take 5 years before you break even, they won't even listen to you. But if you have mandated them and government has put resources in them and say, do this, when NIB was in crisis, part of the agenda in bailing them should have been to revoke their universal license, bail them with money, and tell them that be the National Investment Bank we set you up to be. We have Agriculture Development Bank. We say ADB, so we forget that it is an agriculture. It was set up purposely to help the agriculture value chain. You give them a universal license. I'm not saying they did, but government give them a universal license. If we've made a mistake, let's go back. Sankofa. Now this bank is a listed bank, so Ghana government has a say. So we can say that for our portion of investment into your bank, agriculture, we know you have other shareholders now. You are a market player. Use the portion of our money we bring into the bank, and the deal is that give this percentage of your money to agriculture value chain, the agro processing and all that. You don't go and set up a new development bank to be doing the same thing as Agriculture Development Bank was supposed to do. You don't go and open a new bank and do what NIB was supposed to do. And now they've got into other territories that created a lot of trouble for them. And what did you do? You have used over 800 million COVID money to set up this bank. The COVID was to help us to survive. You don't use it for an adventure. And then say that by opening that bank is going to help business people and give them money. We are yet to see. This is the country we live in. This is the problem we are facing. I don't want to be a prophet of doom. You have, I don't know whether they've been whipped to shape or whatever. You don't have anybody on the government side. And by government, I don't mean only in the executive, but the parliamentarians. You don't have anybody who has an independent voice, who can stand up and say, look, this thing that is going on, I disagree. the finance minister's thing that he has read to us, yes, good report, but I have issue with 1, 2, 3, 4 things. No, everybody.
They all agree? Or they all have to agree publicly, at least?
That is what it looks like. In fact, yesterday's proceedings or activities in Parliament look like a rehearsed one.
Rehearsed?
Yes. Because everything that the finance minister says gets an applaud.
What if they do not disagree?
And
they hold a different opinion to yours?
Well, they may hold a different opinion, but to be honest with you, even sometimes a head of cattle or a head of, you will see one of them decide to go the other way until the shepherd tries to bring them in line. This head is an obedient one. They are moving in the same direction. It looks like they have been trained or induced, whichever way, because for them to follow, this finance minister, you call him in Parliament, he doesn't even come. He doesn't. You see, I have always said from the very beginning, Honorable Kweku Ricketts-Hagan was in the same industry as myself.
Okay.
He's a brilliant investment banker. He's done a lot of things in investment banking, which we have seen. But the investment banking model of operation is different from a public model of financing. And that money is a money that you are holding on behalf of the taxpayer. It is not you going to. And the investment banking model, there's something they used to say in investment banking, which I think has stuck in his head. Some of us, when we came into public financing, we had to reorientate ourselves.
Okay.
And in the investment banking world, they say you make money with other people's money.
You make money with other people. That's money. The orientation with which
that's
you
the
operate.
Orientation. It is an unwritten orientation. But the whole idea, that is what investment managers, what do? They go out and look for money, pension money, insurance money, to come and invest, make you money, and take their percentage. They have a fee structure, they take their percentage. That's when lead managers come and coerce a country that Eurobond is good for you. You go and they borrow for you, and they take a percentage of your proceeds. That's how they live on other people's money. And that is the model that Honorable Kweku Ricketts-Hagan is operating in the public space, public financing. He knows that the best way to get out of any problem is to borrow.
Okay. From an investment banker perspective.
Yes, because investment banker perspective, if you want to buy this building, for instance, I want to buy your business. Yeah, I don't have the money, but I can still buy your business because I can go and borrow. I need to assure my investors and my creditors that when I can turn your business and make it better. I want to bring TV here. I want to do this here. So by the plan I present to them, they will say, oh, Radio Gold is in a good location. But the guys are doing well, but they're not doing as well as, but they have built a name. So let's buy the brand, because when we start our own, we can't do it. Let's buy the brand and enhance the brand. And you enhance the brand by borrowing other people's money to come and enhance the brand, make money, and pay the people. So Kweku Ricketts' model is that whatever situation we are in, why is he bringing loans to Parliament? Because that's all he knows. And we should stop that man.
Stop.
We have to. Yes, I mean, to be honest,
stop him from further borrowing.
He shouldn't have gotten a second term as a finance minister, but of course,
because Parliament carries some of the blame.
So I mean, we take responsibility for that, just as Ghanaian takes responsibility for form of Nana. So, my brother, well, the story is not a good one, and it's not because I'm NDC, and it's not because I'm telling you from a professional standpoint what I see. And if something is not done, if it was NDC government in power today, I would have voiced the same opinions, because I did do that. Though I was a deputy finance minister, of course. I was not a substantive minister. But some of these things that we are doing are going to create bigger problems. Things are snowballing. You know, when you sit in Parliament, look, the things that, and I will share this with you, that depresses me when I'm in Parliament is the loans that come in. You know, sometimes I look at it and I say, is somebody going to pay for this in the future? The loans keep coming as if there's some water tap open somewhere and we just have to take our bucket to go and fetch, and it has no consequence.
Honorable, let me just ask one last question. Would the two committees be able to deal with, because you seem, the way the monies were allocated, huge sums of money allocated to things that are not explained properly, would the committees get you some answers?
They should be, if they do their work well.
Okay.
If they have the nation's interests at heart. If they devoid themselves of the partisanship, MPP, NDC, and want to do a good job for Ghana. Because this is Ghana we are talking about. If they don't do that, then of course you are not going to get the result that you want to get. This guy has presented us what I will call headline. All the things he's giving here are like headlines.
Okay.
We're giving this amount to the ministry of this. We gave this amount to this, what is it called, district assembly and all that. As to what the money was used for, it's not here. So you said you wanted to know how the COVID money has spent. He's the finance minister. He is not a, what is it called, spending officer. Mm-hmm. So he has released the money to the spending officers, who are the ministries. So if you want further clarification, go and ask the ministries. This is what you asked me for, and I've given you on my balance sheet. This is
what he had.
So that committee, that special committee, what Speaker has asked for, if they are to do their work properly, is to actually drill down. Now, having this is a useful tool. This finance minister's thing here is a useful one. Mm-hmm. A lot of things, we have heard a lot of things, but this is the first time they have actually been captured on paper and be presented to Parliament. And Parliament is a house of records. So, presumably, this will not be Nana Akufo-Addo said this, Bawumia said this person said this. This is the finance minister's record.
In Parliament?
In Parliament.
Okay.
So, if we take this record and we drill down, and by that I mean the committee, and say, okay, 200 million was given to this. What was that money used for? What to ministry, what did you use that money for? That is the further interrogation
that's required. Honorable, I want to thank you for joining me this morning. But there are several questions when we're talking about finance that I've written down that I couldn't ask you.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we can rearrange this so that
absolutely.
We spend 2 hours just talking about the economy and your views on it.
Maybe
because I've avoided
the government will end
the interrogation because I thought it would drag.
My frustration is that nobody's listening. And the problems are real. Look, I don't do NDC, MPP politics, the way maybe it's done by other people. I speak to the issues. These are the issues confronting the nation. And it's not about NDC, MPP. This government has pushed us to the cliff. Now, you just need this
for us to go
over the cliff.
Honorable,
that's where we are.
Kweku Ricketts-Hagan.
Yeah.
Is Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South.
Yeah.
He's the ranking member on the Privileges Committee. I didn't even ask him about that work they are doing. So we'll bring him back. We'll have to bring Honorable back.
I couldn't have said much on it because I'm a judge in that matter. So I don't want to be prejudiced.
Okay. Well, I think when we get you back, maybe there are some information you can provide.
Sure.
Ochami Bajimba is up next. From my team, the Gold Morning Conversation, we are back tomorrow. We'll bring you a conversation on e-levy because the money has been doing some work on e-levy. And the guys who are responsible for doing that work will be in the studio with me. We interrogate them on what they have done and then what we are learning about the e-levy, which Honorable is clear in his mind is not the solution. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the fantastic music that Ochami is bringing your way.
Okay. I know what they're saying. They say the love radio goes so bad. And radio gold DJs are so wicked. And radio gold presenters are smooth. And the difference is so clear. We are on air. Come on, and I can't talk so fast. Come on. We are on air. Come on.
Drop this.
Enkrofo fie atenatuo eyade a eyapo na de atwa nsono mu ne se obeye adwuma afimu ne nyina no asa atemsika no de akwa efiewura eno nti na Mighty Pillars Properties emo okwanya se wonso bra na beye efiewura ye won sase a ne boda fom ewo obom kofi kwei hobo ashalaja suhu samsam ama sama agye kotoku domi abra ɛna mfɛn sase no bi nso wɔ